We're waiting to go live. I think we might be live. I think. I don't know. I'm pretty sure we're live.
Yeah.
Hi
Says we are.
guys. Hi
What's up?
guys. Yay. It's suicide and stuff. Mostly
We're here.
stuff. Yeah, we're here.
No, this is mostly suicide today.
Yeah, it is mostly suicide today. And Chris.
Yeah.
Chris is in the middle of the Brady Bunch thing.
Can I be the stuff?
Yeah.
I mean, you're always the stuff. Wait, we have to do our rating. Today, this shit is rated R.
Very R.
For bad words.
Bad words. Yeah.
Okay, but also. Content
massive.
warning. Graphic.
Yeah.
Jess has been waiting for this for a really long time.
Yeah.
Like 4 whole episodes worth of a long time.
I can retire after this, pretty much. After I get to talk about suicide methods on a Facebook Live. Really peaked. No. Today we're going to talk about suicide in movies and TV. Like our favorite ones. Weird times when we were really noticing how much suicide is in everything. Beef corners. And then why suicide is okay sometimes and sometimes not. So it's going to be dope.
Dope, yes.
Dope, yeah. The dopest dope.
Yeah, you do this because I'm not here.
Me do it?
Now. You do.
Well,
you want to lead this party?
I'm going to lead this party. You do the graphics because I can't.
Okay, I'm going to do it. Reminder.
Yeah.
Content warning.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Content warning. We're going to talk about methods. Okay, so let's start with talking about our favorite suicide movies / shows.
I feel like we can't be the only ones who keep a list like this.
Yeah. I mean, everybody has to have, not everybody. People in suicide have to, right?
I think the thing, if you have a favorite movie, if you have a list of favorite movies, there's a good chance that at least a third to a half of them have suicide as a component, right?
I mean, for real. Jess,
I read in the comments my lipstick is on point, and I got very excited.
And now I was just going to tell you that, and now it's all over the screen dancing. The comment about your lipstick.
Oh, dope. Again.
Dope.
Okay.
So what are our favorite movies about suicide?
Yeah. Or where suicide is a prominent part of it or something?
Yeah, I mean that's all I seek out, really. So.
Mm-hmm. I know.
Mine's definitely The Show. I'm just gonna jump in. Seriously. I have a weird hate-love relationship with that one.
Okay,
for anybody who doesn't know.
Okay, all right.
Yes. So the show, and I can't remember what the title was before it was released. They changed it shortly after. It was more on the nose, I think, at the beginning. But it's about a show where people go on live television to kill themselves for money that then goes to their families. So usually, and the whole thing was that the producers and the main star were were exploiting these families that were in need, and they could tell that they were in desperate need of money, and so they would get these people to come in and so there were, at least a dozen pretty egregious, and really egregious depictions of method. Now,
what makes it egregious?
Do what?
What makes an egregious depiction versus not?
Wait. Every time one of us says egregious, we should drink. Whatever you're drinking.
I have water. I am in my office.
You look very much like you need to hydrate. There you go.
Agreed. Okay. So in this circumstance, there were instances of people blowing themselves up or going out of their way to dissect themselves, or there were just very intense graphic scenes of elaborate. I think the elaborate nature of some of these methods is what made it more egregious. It wasn't in any of these circumstances, it wasn't about, and that was what the show was about, right? Like the bigger the death scene was, the more money they got or whatever, right? So people had to just keep escalating, and I think that's what made it so egregious. It wasn't a depiction of anybody trying to escape pain. It wasn't what we think of traditional suicide as being, or an attempt as being. It was for entertainment's sake.
Interesting. I don't know if I would call that egregious. But let's talk about that later, because I have more to say about that later.
You said egregious.
Oh, I said egregious.
Hydrate, girl.
Everybody repeated this.
Yeah, the show was really something. We came across that one on the Strategic Media Task Force when we were doing, for AAS, when we were doing film stuff for a minute there. I don't know why we stopped doing that, because it was fun. But yeah, that was special. We even got to have a phone call. It felt very official and fancy. And then there was a lot of suicide.
Yeah. But I think, and that was a good example of how you can collaborate with a media partner and not come off like a dick, and still potentially create those relationships so that future collaboration is possible. And like, they know to reach out later down the line. They haven't for anything, but it's about creating those relationships. It's about creating that presence.
Okay, Mr. Official Media Man. I don't
I'm just saying.
I don't think that worked very well that time.
It didn't work for that one, but we could. But that's
time.
The thing, right? Yeah, it was our first time, and it was. I don't think anybody in that situation really felt comfortable in trying to censor stuff. We were very forthcoming with our opinions about how things were depicted, but I don't think any of us were like, you can't make this movie, because that's fucking unrealistic.
Nah, man, that movie had already been made. It was just
right.
So you're letting us watch this movie early.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, I'm cool with.
Yeah.
So send me all the movies.
What's your favorite, Des?
I have a list, but this whole conversation made me think of this short film called Down. It doesn't have the actual suicide attempt in it, but it is about a suicide attempt. And Chris and I helped the director with the script of that one too, and I think it came out really well. It's winning a lot of awards. It was good. It was funny. I liked it. But suicide movies, Wrist Cutters, I love.
Yeah.
The Skeleton Twins, I love. What? There was another one on my list the other day, but now I've forgotten it. What was on my list, Jess?
Wrist Cutters, Skeleton Twins.
I had 3. I don't know. Girl Interrupted.
Yeah, Girl Interrupted. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, those are my faves. Wrist Cutters has it's a pretty intense scene. I get real weird about cutting though, so I can't.
Yeah.
I'm
not bothered by the cutting. In general, not bothered by the suicide scenes or the self-harm scenes.
Well, that's because you're a creeper.
I'm a creeper, yeah. But there's more creepers than just me, I bet.
I mean, I want to watch the storylines about them, and I'm fine with them being there, but I'm probably going to look away, because we'll see.
I'm going to rewind it.
Cannot get down.
Yeah. That's why we don't watch them together. That's not true. We probably would watch them together.
Yeah, we totally would.
Yeah.
A Star is Born.
I don't like that one. I'm just bored of a man discovering a woman and then ruining her life, and then we're into it as a love story. No, thank you.
Just talking about the suicide part. I know.
Sure, but
I have a serious answer.
Yeah.
If you want to hear it. Okay, so there's and I think I've told you guys about this. Maybe the last time we talked, I don't remember. It's called Sunshine, and it's a sci-fi horror. I don't even know what category you'd necessarily put this in, but it's directed by Danny Boyle. It has Cillian Murphy, Rose Byrne, A lot of people hate it because there's a couple of plot holes that just make them upset. It's my favorite movie. And it's based on this idea that a team a team of astronauts and engineers has to go up into outer space and basically go fix a ship that had failed at its mission, which was to dive a bomb into the sun and basically restart the core of the sun because the sun was dying, which would have put the entire human race in jeopardy. And so they go up to this other ship. Of course, something happened, and then they get into this whole deal. But essentially, and I'm spoiling this for a lot of people, so oops.
Alert now.
But essentially, at some point, it becomes within the last probably 10 minutes. It becomes clear that to accomplish the mission and to save the entire planet, they are going to have to, suicide bomb the sun. Essentially, they can't escape, and so they're going to have to drive the armed bomb into the sun, and so it becomes a suicide mission at that point.
Every time.
And
it's like Armageddon, but cooler.
Way cooler, so much cooler.
Yeah.
And I didn't even really think about this until I was talking to Tony Wood one night, and he was like, "Chris, you realize that a majority of the movies that you have in your list they have suicide as a key theme."
Yeah.
And this is one of them. Obviously, it's more of that. What does Joyner call it? It's not like noble suicide. It's I wish I could remember what the term is.
I've forgotten.
Yeah, but it's not your, again. It's like it's sort of like
kind of things.
Do what?
Is it like fate or destiny kind of stuff?
Sort of, yeah. Or like a much smaller scale equivalent would be a soldier jumping on a grenade to save his buddies around him.
John Gunn says altruistic.
Altruistic or eusocial, I think, was the other term.
Yeah. Let's see. I have so many favorite suicide movies and shows. I hate the show Friends, but I love watching it for suicide content. So there's that, which we'll get to another time. There's a show called Misfits that's about people that get superpowers who suck at having they're not heroes. Great. There's a way later in the series, there's an episode where one of the guys can die and come back. So he kills himself a lot in the series. But there's a particular episode sometimes for great reasons, or he allows himself to be killed, which does it count as suicide is a whole other thing we can talk about too. But in Misfits, he has this episode where he kills himself on a TV show over and over and over and over again. And it's really, really disturbing, but that's the point of it. That's the point of the episode, is how screwed up that is. So I liked that one. All the ones Des mentioned are on my list. I've had I feel like every movie I was into when I was a kid also was a suicide movie in a weird way. There's suicidal stuff, suicide ideation and stuff in The Last Unicorn, which is my favorite movie of all time. So, formative for me, suicide was. And
M just said The Phone Call, which I also really loved. Do you guys remember that?
Yeah.
It was up for an Oscar, or maybe won an Oscar, I think.
Mm-hmm.
That was hard, but I really liked it a lot.
I don't know that one.
It's like a 10-minute film about someone calling a crisis.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And I think it came out the same year as The Crisis Line.
Mm-hmm. There was a documentary about the Veterans Crisis Line.
Oh.
And it came out that same year.
What isn't it called? Wasn't it called Crisis Line?
Yeah. I
think so.
Okay. Yeah.
Des, what was that one movie? It ended up being almost gay porn. that you told me about that I watched. That one was weird.
I don't remember because I never actually watched it.
It's about a guy who calls a crisis line and is a creep.
Yeah.
Anyway, he's suicidal or maybe not. Maybe gonna kill some other people. And
what about the virgin suicides?
Ooh, I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Also, Perks of Being a Wallflower.
I was just gonna say that those books both came out at the same time too.
Yep, they did.
Was that your connection?
Read them. Yep. I'm reading the new book by Stephen Chbosky, however you say that his name. Yeah, who wrote Perks of Being a Wallflower.
I got the audio because you told me to.
That content with the kid is voice hearing, so that's cool.
Yeah.
Couple more good mentions. Heathers.
Oh yeah, that's one of my favorite movies ever. Yeah.
And do you all remember The Happening with Mark Wahlberg? It was an M. Night Shyamalan movie.
Yeah.
The plants were rebelling against humanity and making them kill themselves. It was literally the worst plot in the entire existence of cinema.
Also, Marky Mark is a big piece of shit. So.
Is he?
Oh God.
Yeah. He's a hate crimer and stuff. He's the worst.
Oh, that's sad.
So we don't need to give him too much. Okay, what about what's that movie? Sandra Bullock's in now, and she. This isn't one of my favorites, but there's a lot of suicide in it. They have to blindfold themselves so they don't see.
Oh, Blind Box. Bird Box?
Bird Box, yeah.
Bird Box.
Yeah.
That was dumb.
Bird
Box.
Biggity boo. And then there's the other one that was Bird Box but with sound.
Yeah.
So
Quiet.
Yeah, The Quiet Place. There's some suicide in that too, but it's like the same things.
Yeah.
I feel like if you watch one of those movies, you watch both of them.
Yeah.
Fell reminded me about a movie that fucked me up. Oh my God.
What movie?
It's called A Necessary Death. It was on Netflix for a short time. It has never returned. So it's presented as a documentary.
Oh no.
The filmmaker wants to film somebody killing themselves. And so it's good. He puts like a Craigslist ad up and interviews people about why they want to kill themselves and all of this, and settles on someone with a terminal illness of some sort. And then they're like, they go through the process of him choosing his method and all of the things, and like it's just intense, all of it. And then there are some plot twists, and then the death does happen. So do some others. Turns out it's not a documentary. Thank God. Because I was like clutching myself, thinking somebody had died.
You don't.
I didn't know.
That's not okay. Wow.
I was very upset. I was
like, I think
fucked up. That felt like a snuff film or some shit.
Yeah, it looks like one of those movies where they piece together, found footage kind of stuff, and then, but it also, like, I just looked it up on IMDb. It looks like it was actually based off of a real event or like a real classified ad that had been put out.
Oh,
shit, I don't remember that. I feel like I did a lot of research after that because I was so fucked up by it. But now I gotta go back and look again.
So I think what's interesting about like all of this, as we start, like the more we talk, the more movies we think of, or the more shows or whatever we think of, and it's like because suicide is in it's like hard to watch things like anything without encountering suicide, because like it's a part of life, and it's something that is impactful, right, to people. So I think I have moments where I've gotten like hyper aware of how present that is.
Oh, I think you just segued us into our next segment.
I sure did. This is why I'm the leader today.
Don't need her.
A full page of notes. Because previously they were sticky notes all over my office that were probably creepy. And okay, office. So like for me, the weirdest time I noticed how much suicide was present in media is the Friends thing,
Same one.
which I did Watch all of Friends. There are 7 episodes that don't mention suicide in Friends, the series.
What?
I'm not kidding. I watched it all and counted.
Wait, there were 10 seasons?
There were 10 seasons. 7 episodes don't mention suicide in some way.
And how many episodes a season? Like 20, 23?
Like, so many. Yeah. So many. Like hundreds of episodes of Friends. So
that's amazing.
I had like a summer where I was doing consulting and I didn't have a ton of contracts, and this is what I did with my time. It's cool because I'm cool and fun to be around. And so, one of the major plot points in Friends is that Phoebe's mother killed herself. So it comes up all the time in her experiences as a loss survivor. And then also they tell each other to kill themselves all the time, especially Monica, because, she used to be fat. And fat people should want to die. Or even formerly fat people should want to die. That's the moral of Friends. So it's a terrible show. But it's that's really intense for a show that was like that formative for like generations of people. I think like that was a big deal, and I talked about suicide constantly.
So if there are 20 episodes a season and there's 10 seasons, that would put us at, and somebody correct my math if I did this wrongly, but that would put us at 96.5% of episodes of Friends contain suicide.
Look at this little math.
Look at that.
And so, I counted everything that was like everything from like jokes about killing yourself or that other people should kill themselves, or like references to like the pointing like a fake gun to their head, kind of like with their finger guns to their head stuff. I counted all of that, but still, so this is like big.
Yeah, I just thought of a suicide reference within a reference that I just made. I just called you a mathlete, Chris, and you can't join the mathletes because it's social suicide.
Oh, that's true.
It's everywhere.
Hyper aware. Didn't even do that intentionally.
Talking about being hyper aware, so I'm sure that you both have something like this happen, but I'll be watching a movie, and within maybe 5 or 10 minutes, I can tell if there's going to be a suicide in the movie. Like I can just say like person's going to attempt suicide,
well, you got Spidey
or
sense.
But it's like suicide-y sense. So like,
yeah, I have that too.
That's like I feel. I don't know how to like if I'm with other people, and I'm like in my head, I'm thinking. There's going to be a suicide in this movie. I can't like reach over to them or look over to them and be like, hey, there's going to be a suicide in this movie at some point. So just, get ready. It feels weird to like, I don't know what I'm talking about.
I just tell people this is why I can only watch movies with my friends is because I start shouting about it. I'm like, that guy's going to kill himself.
Guys, we got a great comment.
What's that?
Adam Dingle wants us to know that suicide is a permanent decision in a temporary situation.
Oh, doesn't Hollis have a really good blog about that?
Yes. Yeah, someone should link
I'm going to post it. Please hold. Going to post it.
And then we can just move right along. Was it 2015? I think it was 2015 for the whole year. Oh, I got real pissed off when I saw Birdman.
For the whole year.
I was pissed off for an entire year about Birdman.
You were so mad. You were so mad.
Why were you mad?
Because, like, I talk about suicide every day, and it was a Sunday fucking afternoon, and I wanted to go to the movies, and I didn't want to see this Batman Birdman thing. And I got forced into it. I'm making eyeballs at you.
It was good.
Ugh. I got forced into it, and then I was like, I can't just have like one day off from this bullshit. And then I decided to log every time I saw a suicide reference in any kind of media I consumed. For like an entire year, I did that. And that does not include things that I sought out myself, because like I do seek out suicide content clearly. But I would write something down every day, pretty much every day. There was very rarely a day that went by where I didn't consume something that had suicide in it, and that was surprising even to me. So that was when I became hyper aware of it. I thought before that it was just like, oh, like you notice these things because you're like looking for them, but that's not the case at all.
I got an alert that said my comment about with linking to Hollis's thing goes against our community standards.
What?
What community standards?
Why Facebook?
Oh, it's Facebook because I tried to like it and it wouldn't let me like it, so that explains why.
Yeah, it says it goes against community standards.
I wonder what happens when I try to post it.
I mean,
yeah, everybody post it.
Fine.
Anyway, I'll send it to you if you need it. Or you can just Google Hollis Easter suicide as a permanent solution and it'll pop up. Oh, cool. You got to post it.
Oh, so Adam Dingle wants us to know that all situations come to pass. Adam, I'm not sure that this is the right show for you.
Well, I mean, he can learn about it.
Sure. I think that you should go read Hollis's link.
Cool.
Joel posted it too, so it's up there a few times now.
Okay, cool.
I don't know why I'm a problem for people, but for Facebook. But yeah.
You're a problem.
And also why that, because I've made a lot of other comments.
I really have. I'm suddenly very cranky.
So there's lots of ways that this like shows up where you become hyper aware. And like really if you work in the field, you become hyper aware of it, I think.
I think that absolutely makes a problem. Not a problem, but it does increase the intensity. Like the intensity of what Des is feeling right now. It spikes and peaks.
Yeah, I think I noticed suicide. It's like there's suicide content, right? You sent me that SNL skit with the suicide content. That was funny.
The apple picking, but I think some people didn't even notice that there was a suicide reference in there.
Right. Yeah. So it's like, so what's interesting to me about this whole thing is that we like in suicide prevention, we're often like, oh, be careful how you present suicide in media, but it's like everywhere, and we don't care about all of it, which we'll get to later. There are things happening in the content. I don't even know. I'm gonna let everybody in there do it.
Phil just pointed out the name Osita, and I was like, oh shit, yeah, Little Bear. That was good. Yeah, I need to not look at the comments, guys.
Yeah, it's going too fast. But yeah, so I think like the way suicide shows up is like really pervasive, but that's true about how suicide is in life too. Yeah. We also don't notice it in our lives all the time. And so like the fact that we're not noticing it is like that we have this lack of awareness about how common suicide is sort of like a big deal to me. It's a big deal that we don't notice it in our lives, and it's a big deal that we don't notice it in like film and TV. And then that we make a big deal about certain types of representations and not others without just like even having discussion about.
Look, you have 15 minutes before you can go to that place.
Yeah, I know. That's why I just trailed off. I'm not allowed to talk about the show yet.
We have to beef corner first.
Yeah, we have to beef corner first.
Suddenly I have beef. Let me pull up the thingy. Beef corner.
Jess has beef.
It's beef corner.
Okay. So we're going to do beef corner before.
Yes. My corner is beefy.
Before I get to talk about the show.
Oh my god, the show. Who has beef? What's your beef?
Do your beef. You said you had beef.
I mean, my beef is with the comments section right now. That's pretty clear.
Yeah.
I thought almost you had fell the fuck over.
I'm confused. We've all attempted suicide on this.
Oh god. What?
That's the thing. I'm responding to a comment. We have all attempted suicide.
Oh.
So beef time. The comments are full of beef.
The comments are
lots of beef there. They're beefy, and
but they're not like they're not like A grade beef. They're like hot dog beef.
Yeah.
What specific beef do you have with the comments though, Des?
Nope.
There's so let's not. Okay, so beef. I have some beef that, like, today in the Supreme Court,
oh man,
we're having arguments about whether or not fucking queer people get to work.
Yeah.
And if you can fire them for just like existing, that is fuckery. And if we don't think that is contributing to suicide rates, with the fact that like suicidology is not appalled that this is even a thing that's happening and having discussions about it, gives you a really clear picture of like the narrow focus of how we think about suicide. And we're not looking at all of these like root causes. Like every organization that does suicide intervention should be outraged that
Jess,
this is something
you cannot bring politics into this.
I certainly will every week.
Every minute.
You all know about Caitlin Ryan, right? And her research. She works with the Family Acceptance Project, and has shown for years and years and years that acceptance by family for LGBTQ folks decreases suicide rates and makes them feel more included. Just overall wellness is increased, right? She is coming out with some research here in actually this week, I believe, is when they're going to release it with some new tools, bilingual tools even. So keep an eye out for that. Some really good stuff coming out of her shop.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah. So that was the beef that I had with both suicidology and with just humanity in general.
Yeah. I mean, we're really rolling it back.
Well, when you say "Make America Great Again," we all know that means make America what 1950s or 1860s or 1830s. So, I mean, they have goals.
That's bad news. Things are bad.
Bad.
I have general beefs with like all of politics at the moment.
Mean, if it gets bad enough, we could all just take a spaceship into the sun.
That is not where I thought that was going. At all.
No?
Well, there's precedent for it. Wait,
wait, what?
Hold up. Have either of you seen Event Horizon?
Yes.
It's fantastic. It's one of the most terrifying horror films ever. I'm pretty sure there's at least one or two suicides in that. So just wanted to throw that one out there. That one we could take a spaceship. We could take a spaceship to hell. No, it connected. It just took me a minute.
All right. Fine. I follow Satan on Twitter. That's fun.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, Satan's trying to get verified right now.
Wait, that's not a beef.
No, that's anti-beef. That's something that makes me happy.
Yeah.
I'm concerned about the comments section. I see there are essays happening now.
There is so much going on.
I guess this means we've made it. We got trolls.
I guess you all can feed the trolls or not, but you don't have to.
What else?
You do not.
I had beef. I have beef with grad school essays.
Yeah.
That took a long time.
Is that it?
That was it?
I have beef with how long it took me to come up with something that I just didn't even care about anymore. When I hit the submit button, I was like, it's words. I don't know. It's just words. Yeah, I looked at it too long. Do I have other beef? What's my beef?
My beef is that some of the comments are egregious.
Oh, no.
All right. I don't know. I feel like, was that enough beef? Do we have the shortest beef corner ever?
I wish I could contribute. I just don't have any beef. Also,
so nice.
It must be nice to be.
I'm sure. Okay, I'm sure I have beef. I just can't think of it like right now.
Okay.
Oh, can I bring up something that's kind of related to the last topic though? Yeah. Just really quickly.
Do it.
We have time.
Because I mentioned this. Because I mentioned I'm going to use my beef corner time for this time. Not that I'm trying to rearrange your show or anything, because I want to be invited back at some point. So I talked to you. Okay, I talked to you all about this weekend a little bit. I watched a movie called The American Meme. That was fascinating, and it follows 4 or 5 internet influencers. As a core for the documentary itself, but of course they talk to dozens and dozens of big name internet influencers. They look at the journey of a lot of these influencers, and Paris Hilton is the main one that they kind of follow around. And the reason they used her was as a sort of transition personality from an analog world into the digital world. So she's one of the first ones that really kind of made that jump and did it successfully. But they follow 4 or 5 others, right? And like every single one of them talks about how they'd had lived experience with suicidal ideation or had attempts in their history. And that was one of those moments where I'm sitting there watching it and feeling super hypervigilant. And I was texting you while I was texting some other friends, like, oh my God, another one. And like this one now, it like mentioned that, but because they didn't obviously have it all like, oh yeah, I thought about suicide. And, oh yeah, I tried to kill myself. It was just like popping up here and there. It's like popcorn, suicide popcorn throughout this movie.
Popcorn. There are so many T-shirts on this.
But it had a lot to do with personal loss, right? Loss of independence, loss of privacy. So for Paris Hilton, when her sex tape got released, she was, she literally said in that moment that she didn't want to be alive anymore, that she didn't feel like she was worth anything. Who knows whether that was what was going on or how that all happened. But the fact of the matter was that thought was there, and so it was loss or. One of the guys that was currently kind of going through some substance abuse issues, and so there was a lot of things attached with that. So it was just, and it was kind of all backed by this pressure to perform, pressure to be perfect, and a pressure to constantly have something for the people who they thought actually cared about them. They start realizing, this guy in particular starts realizing that. That his fans, they don't really care about him as a person. They just want him to perform. And he said something along the lines of like, in that moment, there was not a moment in my life where I didn't want to die more. And so it was fascinating to me that even in a movie about something completely like a documentary about something completely non-suicide related, it's right there and over and over and over and over again. And I don't know if that even says, I think that might even say something about internet culture kind of in a larger perspective too, and where our communication is going and how we're trying to perform for other people. So it was fascinating to me that there was a lot kind of encapsulated in this hour and 40 minutes.
Yeah, I remember watching that. I think I watched it right when it came out.
Yeah, because it came out like last year.
Yeah, so I have the memory of a goldfish, so I don't remember details, but I do remember suicide being involved.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was probably watching Friends. Because, it took a lot of time.
It really did. I remember when that was happening.
Started over because you're counting how many didn't have suicide in them, so...
You know what my favorite suicide movie is?
What?
The S Word.
Which one?
The S Word.
Oh, that's cute.
It's
okay.
not a suicide movie because everyone in it is alive.
Quick question.
Cute.
Quick question. Okay, so I collected a vial of my tears.
Oh, yeah.
And I wrote down all of the reasons I cried for a week. Somebody wins this. We're going to give this shit away today.
I think it should go to Adam Dingle.
No, we need a competition. Don't just tell me what to do that fast. We need a competition to make this happen. So my competition is going to be the person who makes the funniest comment on our thing tonight.
Intentional or unintentional?
I don't know. I don't want to have to judge what's intentional or not. But if you make the funniest comment about suicide and stuff tonight, I will send you a vial of my tears.
Like, are you actually gonna send it?
I am actually gonna send it.
How are you gonna protect the tears in the vial from evaporating?
Well, the vial is closed. I glued it shut.
In there.
I glued it shut.
Oh shit!
I super glued the vial. I'm gonna put it in one of those envelopes. This has already happened, and then I forgot to bring it to work to show you. I'm gonna put it in one of those envelopes with the bubble wrap. Bubble wrap envelopes, and I'm gonna send it to you with my list. It's not a bad gift. It's a really funny gift. Like when you see what I'm about, it's really funny.
I like it.
Do we get a little bit of a teaser about some of the things on the list?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, most of them are like Josh the Doodle.
Michelle, it's not necessarily a sad gift. These tears.
No, super not that.
All different
really
kinds of reasons.
Can you borrow a feeling? Yeah, I have so many fucking feelings. And one of them is just like really excited to try and talk about the thing that everybody's not letting me talk about yet.
Okay, I think we could probably spend some time on this, right?
Okay, all right.
Okay. So here's my segue into this, is that I watched this show, Suicide's Everywhere, right? So I watched this show, Big Mouth, with my partner last night. It's season 3. There's Hormone Monsters, it's complicated, whatever. But at one point, this dude, like, this teenager sent his cousin dick pics, which was not a good choice. And he's writing a note to his cousin, and his cousin... his feelings in that. His cousin is like, sorry, not his cousin. He's writing a note to his cousin, and the Hormone Monster is like, thinks he's going to kill himself. And then all of a sudden, they just like turn toward the audience and are like, the Hormone Monster. This is a Netflix show. The Hormone Monster goes, no teenager should kill themselves, even if it makes for captivating programming, and directly calls out Netflix. And obviously they're referencing 13 Reasons Why, which people have been talking about in the content or in the comments. And I have so many things to say about.
I mean, when are we not talking about 13 Reasons Why?
Always, but I wish we weren't, because it's so fucking stupid that we're always talking about it. Here's some reasons that I think it's stupid. One is to...
Wait. Are there going to be 13 of them?
No. I should have done that. That would have been so much better.
God, who even are you?
I'm going to plan the countdown. Okay, someday I'll make a list of the 13 reasons that we shouldn't. But whatever. Anyway, so, okay, here's a list of movies that came out in the spring of 2017 at the same time as 13 Reasons Why that involve a suicide in a fucking bathtub on screen. That I thought... I made this list based on my own memory and fact-checked myself. So here we go. John Wick 2. Gianna kills herself in a bathtub. Same way as Hannah. Nobody gave a shit. Get Out. Get Out. This is the one where he shoots himself in the head. Not in a bathtub. But there's other movies where there was bathtub suicides. There's the movie Rings. Anna Morgan kills herself after her horse is drowned. She drowns herself. And then Richard electrocutes himself in a bathtub. These all came out, and then there's also 50 Shades Darker that has suicide all over the place in it, but not in a bathtub. So that's like...
And Sexy Times.
Yeah, So that's like all the ones I could think of with a bathtub suicide scene that came out in the same season as 13 Reasons Why. But we, in suicide prevention, and then also like all parents everywhere who panicked, which is I guess a parent thing to do. You all panic over there as parents? Are you panickers?
Panicking?
Yeah. Do you panic as a parent?
About 13 Reasons Why, or just in general?
Just in general. Maybe it's just a parent.
Not really.
Oh, yes, a lot.
But you
today,
just in general, right?
No, today I was looking at my beautiful child in a car seat while I was waiting for Fel to come with the car, and I was gonna boop her in there, and I was like thinking of all the nice and graphic ways that we could die in a car, or she could die in a car, and then I could be alive. Every fucking day. I think I need.
So maybe parents
anxiety meds.
Maybe parents were just parenting, but Suicidology was panicking for no fucking reason. They should have used their DBT skills.
I think we made it worse.
But real quick though, Des, totally normal. Those do go away at like 5-ish.
What, when you're trying to get rid of the kid, or?
No. I'm saying like. No, because then you go to jail over that. You can't do that. No, I think when it comes, so it was. I honestly think there is a big chance. There's a big chance that we made that whole situation much worse.
For sure,
a big chance. Yeah. So like, what is it about Hanna Baker that was so scary to people? Like, what makes us okay with Gianna and John Wick doing the exact same fucking thing? Actually, her scene is longer than Hanna Baker's. I just timed it this week because that's how I am. And so what makes that okay? And Hanna Baker's Suicide not? Because like, we like campaigned to get that shit taken out of 13 Reasons Why. And it did. And it worked. We were that annoying about it. So like
3 years later.
It's the audience, right? It's the targeted audience is the number one answer. I'm not condoning any of these answers. No, I'm just telling you this is what I've heard is that it's the audience that it is targeted towards, even though it had a mature rating, I believe. But we know for a fact that 7-8-year-olds and up were watching this show, and Netflix knew that as well. The other piece of that, the other arm of that, is that because of their age, they were particularly vulnerable. And then when you have adolescents or teens in who are experiencing thoughts of suicide, they're extra vulnerable. So you have vulnerable children who are extra vulnerable, who are then watching this thing that tends to glamorize suicide.
Sure.
The rest of them are adults, and some of these are criminals, right? So there's a whole bunch of things.
No children watch John Wick.
No. Right. No kids. No.
None. Yeah, they're not allowed.
I went to see Girl Interrupted in the theaters 3 times because, like, the shit that the main character went through and that on-screen... Well, I guess it wasn't on-screen suicide, but you did see Daisy after she was dead, and, like, you saw her cuts, and, like, that really spoke to me. I don't think that it put me more at risk necessarily. I think that I was seeking it out, and I think it made me feel a little better understood. It made me feel like, oh, there are other people out here who are doing this.
Yeah. It's just like this. But so like the other thing is like John Wick is not a suicide show, and everybody knew that 13 Reasons Why was a fucking suicide show. So people were going into that kind of prepared. You watch John Wick 2, are you prepared for suicide? Not necessarily. If you watch Friends, are you prepared for suicide content? Not necessarily. But we give a lot of shits about a show that actually discloses that this is what it's going to be about. And no shits about shows that will just like bring it in. Like that's absurd to me.
Lena mentioned that that teachers were making their students watch 13 Reasons Why to learn a lesson.
Well, that's just teachers being jackasses.
That's what teachers not teaching.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. So like
don't do that.
Right. And I don't know what the fuck lesson they were teaching, but like so the other pieces that people talk about, like that suicide death is extra bad because she was trying to punish people by killing herself. I have attempted suicide with a goal of punishing people who are shitty to me. That is a thing that happens. That's real life. People actually do that. So, like, why are we saying that we can't, right? You can only show a good suicide attempt? Is that the deal? Like, it's only if you're like just doing it to hurt yourself. It's only an okay suicide attempt to be on TV if you're like doing it to kill yourself.
Man, we need to get you like a denim jacket that says like bad attempt survivor or something.
Okay, I would wear that if you would like
shocked
just that. Yeah,
you just said that.
That it's a denim jacket. I want a denim jacket.
I feel like you would wear a denim jacket. I feel like that scene was hard for me because you saw all of it.
Yeah.
All of it. Like, and I think that it freaked me out because like I've been there. And you know, they show her like go into the pharmacy and picking the razors up, and then like they never cut away. There's never a moment for you to breathe in that scene. And I couldn't even watch it. I was just listening to it and I was sobbing. And it was fucking hard. It was hard to take.
Yeah.
It's not the worst. Well, it might be the worst suicide scene I've seen. Or one of them, but I still don't. I think we made a mistake.
When did the German show Dark come out?
After that.
It's becoming a pretty big cult classic on Netflix.
We watched like one episode and I was bored.
Right, but it literally begins with a dude hanging himself.
Mm-hmm.
So does Sense8 with a gun.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So there's like suicides in lots of things. So I think there's this. I think the 13 Reasons Why thing is crazy to me because the biggest weird moment in that is that like it is not the most brutal to me thing that happens in that show, but it's the only thing we cared about having removed. So all of the reasons that someone might want to kill themselves are totally fine to expose people to. And we don't have to do anything about that, but like, oh shit, let's make sure that nobody sees what suicide is like.
Yeah, but it's cool to watch a rape.
That's kind of how we treat suicide prevention too, right? We focus so much on the suicide and nothing on the things that drive people there. So I feel like it's just like a great example of all of that. I have no segue for the next thing I want to talk about.
Well, you better get on it.
Okay. So let's talk about why suicide is so present in horror movies.
Don't you have more sections than this? More segments than this? You have 7 minutes. Are we going to go into overtime?
I don't know. I'm going to try and do it really fast.
Okay, go.
But Chris
shock.
Horror.
Huh?
Chris has stuff about horror to say.
Oh, I don't know if I have a whole lot other than, I mean, you pretty much wrote everything out. But really, like, it's shock, it's gore, it's unexpected. It sort of kind of what we were talking about earlier. It I think reflects sometimes very poorly in horror movies and bad horror movies the unexpected nature and unpredictability sometimes of suicide and the potential effects on people. I don't remember what the name of that one. There was a horror movie a while back where the mom had to protect her child, and there was some convoluted series of events, but essentially she had to shoot herself in the end. And it was such lazy writing, but it was done purely out of shock value. And that, I think, gets replicated over and over again because it's almost a trope now. And I don't know where it started. I don't know, how that all worked, but it's definitely a core piece of horror movies.
Yeah.
That made me think of the Babadook, which, like, I kind of hated that movie, but...
I hated that movie.
But I thought it did trauma. Okay.
It did trauma, for sure.
Did the messaging, all right. Dude, I like the Babadook is gay. He's like a gay icon.
Yeah, I do like that. That's my favorite thing. So I think that part of the reason that suicide is so present in horror is because of this concept called the uncanny, which is like a thing that makes horror movies really good. And that's when you're making the familiar unfamiliar, or the unfamiliar familiar. And I think suicide both like brings us closer to death, making the unfamiliar thing, death, more familiar. And it transforms the people we lose in some ways, or our perceptions of them, at least in film. And so that makes the familiar unfamiliar. But all of that is only true because of our cultural perceptions of suicide being something that's strange and unusual, when it's not really. So I think what good horror does is brings into light all the stuff that we keep in cultural darkness. So it makes total sense that horror frequently addresses suicide. And if it doesn't always do it well. A lot of times it does it really badly. And sometimes I think people replicate suicide in horror because they know that it did something to them when they watched it in a good horror film. And so they replicate it badly. Mm-hmm. And I also think it's like not always sensitive to loss survivors. Mm-hmm. And that can be complicated for people. But I also don't know if it's the responsibility of film to be sensitive to anyone who might watch it. And I think that people knowing about content is helpful, but I don't think that just because people have experienced things means we can't put them in film. That brings me to ritual suicide, which I'm actually going to get to talk to.
Wow, that was
skillful. Skilled.
I'm going to give you a prize, but I don't have one.
Well, you should.
And now I have a shitty couch, so I can't even say, come sit on this couch.
Oh, no. So I think for me, like the discussion of ritual suicide in film, it like challenges our ideas of what suicide is. And we talk a lot about people dying by suicide being this like horrific consequence of like a lack of services or like mental illness or whatever we call it. And sometimes that's true, but like in that case, is ritual suicide a suicide? And I think it's important to remember that inside our research, we're always defining what is and is not the thing we study, whether we're doing that intentionally or not. But all of our research has kind of been constructed around suicide being this like one thing that is like a result of intense internal pain. And that doesn't really recognize all of the different reasons that suicides occur. So then things like ritual suicide are always uncanny for us because they are outside of the scope of what we think of suicide as being. So that's why ritual suicide shows up in horror all the time. And I think that's one of those core tensions between lived experience and research. Lived experience often has way more expansive definitions of what we think suicide is, and research becomes very narrow because as soon as you let in other things, it destabilizes and challenges their perspectives. So I think Midsommar has a great example of this, which is one of my favorite horror movies that's new, and you should check it out, because they juxtapose something that is most definitely a suicide, like it is, murder-suicide, next to something that maybe isn't, or maybe is, and it makes you question that. And it makes you like kind of deal with those two things in the same place. And that's
so good.
Perfect definition of the uncanny in horror. That's
why that is so good.
I like how that he got really close to his microphone.
Yeah.
The movie is so good.
I like
it. It's so good. Chris just texted me the whole time he was watching it.
I was very impressed.
Yeah.
And for a lot of the reasons you mentioned, I want to add just something that I totally agree with what you were talking about in terms of the uncanny stuff and making things that are seemingly unfamiliar familiar, even though in reality they are very familiar, right, and they're constantly in front of us. And I think at the core of this is the fact that suicide by its nature is violent. And so we typically don't think of violence as being something that's in our face all the times, but when you look at the news, when you look at anything that happens on a day-to-day basis, violence is typically pretty prevalent. And so that you just drew that out. I think that's a perfect example of what's going on here. And so when you attach violence, which is also inherent to horror movies, and some of the imagery around methods of suicide, it all kind of combines for I'm not going to say perfect combination, but a combination that fits with horror tropes, right?
That's all I have. It was a lot. I talked so much.
Oh shit! You came in right on time. I
Right on
was looking. I was trying to see if I could rent Midsummer because I still haven't seen it.
I think I had to buy it on Amazon, but it's there. It's worth it.
Well, usually if you wait a couple more weeks, you can just rent it.
Yeah.
So we'll see. Yeah, I haven't seen it yet. I want to. I don't watch horror movies as much as you guys do. I don't know. I get all
like every night. You don't watch
sensitive, and now I can only watch true crime.
Oh, right. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
Well, anyway, so I'm gonna go through your comments and see who is funniest, and then do a file of my tears. It's really cool, really casual prize.
I still know who the winner is.
Yeah.
I had a thought. Wait, so we were talking about parents being paranoid earlier?
Yeah.
I was going to say crazy, and then I was like, no, I need better words.
Panicky.
Panicky. I started watching a lot of true crime, like more than usual, which is a lot, after I had the baby. But specifically... Huh?
Good for you, yeah.
But specifically, I was watching true crime where, like, children get abducted or
good call
murdered. And sometimes it wasn't even intentional. I'd just watch something, and then there would be a child something terrible happened to, and I was like, okay, that's good.
Yeah.
I did the same thing with true crime podcasts. I got into one called Case Files when there are, hundreds of episodes. Listen to all of them. I'd say a good third or half are involving child kidnapping or murdering or something. And so then for a pretty consistent, like 6 to 8 months, I'm making sure that my children are like I know exactly where they are and I know exactly what they're doing. And
that's the right way to parent for sure. I'm pretty sure.
It is.
I'm glad I didn't. I'm glad that I knew about Dear Zachary before I had kids, like way before.
Or Imposter.
Wait,
did you ever see that one?
No, I don't think so.
Hey, next time, guess what? Next time, we are going to talk about suicide and supernatural experiences.
Yes.
With Leah Harris.
And
Lena Heilman. Yeah. So I'm pretty excited about that. It's going to be really cool.
Maybe.
That's all I got.
Maybe we'll get some more trolls.
I hope not.
I know. We made it.
Even bad engagement is engagement.
Yeah.
It's engagement. Yeah, we'll see. We got one angry react on here. Hey, that's fun. I wonder who did that. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. We'll see you in 2 weeks on the 22nd. 22nd. Yes, 22nd at 7 p.m. Mountain Time, 8 p.m. Central Time, 9 p.m. Eastern Time,
6 p.m. Pacific Time.
Also those guys.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nice work, everyone. Have a good night.
Say bye, people.
Bye.